Hey everybody, welcome to the first supplementary tutorial that goes along with each unit and each section. In these, what we're doing, we're compressing older videos, excerpts from older videos from older workshops into a small sort of supplementary tutorial to go along with each unit and within each section. So you're going to find that this jumps around because within 3 workshops, 3 years worth of work, there's a lot of content. So I've pulled different things that apply, and some are even looking forward a little bit. So when you watch these small excerpts, don't get too overwhelmed about things that we may be talking about, chapter books and picture books, graphic novels, and don't get too overwhelmed with what we're saying on the overall. Just pay close attention to the small bits of information coming through pertaining to what each unit's talking about, and then looking forward to the next unit from here. Okay. So that's what you're getting ready to check out now, and pull that and what you can use, and thanks again for participating.
You have a limited amount of space on a page, okay? So this is a traditional, let's just imagine this is a regular piece of paper here, okay? 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, all right? Now, like I said last time, you can take this piece of paper, you can flip it around, you can make it so that it's long ways instead of portrait, and that'll affect your space a little bit, but this is what we're all working with, generally this shape right here. So when you're creating a comic, a mini comic or a graphic novel, you're going to have what's called panels, right? Now, all of you guys who understand what, like comics, you know what a panel is. A panel, what is a panel, guys? Anybody want to help me out here? What's a panel in a comic? Anybody know? Nobody? It's a box, right? The box that appears on the page. So you have a box that everything takes place in. A little box. And you can shape those boxes however you want. And all those boxes fit on a page within the space you have, and you can shape them however you like. You can use as many as you want. But what I want you to try to remember as you're creating this is that you're limited to your space, okay? If you try to put 50 panels or boxes on a page, then your comic's going to be, you can't read it, okay? So this is kind of like one example of how you could construct your page, okay? These are panels, and that's how you format it. For picture books and chapter books, it's a little different, all right? You have the entire page to work with, so you can draw an entire full illustration to fit on that page. So we're doing an emphasis on setting. So we talked about the plot, the character, the conflict. We talked a little bit about theme last time, and I didn't really address theme a lot this time because there's a confusion when we talk about theme in writing, right? There's 2 types of ideas with theme, and students get this really, really mixed up a lot. The theme of your story is the idea that the author wants to try to get across to the reader, right? Okay? And we confuse this a lot with the general idea of a story. The general idea of a story is what's happening. See, there can be a big difference in that. What's happening in a story and what the author wants you to take from the story. You see what I mean? But let's not get too confused on that. So there's a broad range here, like we talked about. For instance, we talked about, for high schoolers, exposition. What does that mean? When you talk to a 4th or 6th grader, what is exposition? I think that's introduced in language arts in 7th grade, I think. But exposition is actually when your characters are introduced in your story. So that your exposition could be the first page of your story, the first page of your book, where you introduce the main character walking out their door to go to school. That's your exposition. The rising action sets up the conflict. See, that's a term that high schoolers will know that 4th and 5th, 6th graders like, what do you mean? And then the climax or the resolution, that's where the conflict changes. And typically, a character, like we talked about before the recording, typically when you end a story and you have resolution that happens, the climax as we call it, when that happens, typically a character is changed by what happened. So the bad guy could be like, oh wow, I've been bad. I shouldn't be bad, right? There's a change. And we talked about Darth Vader. Because here's the thing, I reference films a lot. Now we're talking about language arts. And film and language arts, totally different thing in a way. It's still story building, okay? But the reason I reference film is because, number one, I have no idea what books are being read in classrooms. what you're being asked to read in a class. It could be different across the board. Typically not. There's some things, grapes of wrath, stuff like that, we know is probably going to be introduced somewhere, right? And also on top of that, I have no idea what you're reading at home. So I don't know if you've read Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, right? I hope I pronounced that right. I have no idea. Now that's not a required reading in any classroom, but it's a book that's really popular with young adults. So, you know, I don't know. So I reference film because there's something, you know, I'm pretty sure everybody's watched Harry Potter, right? Okay. And maybe even read Harry Potter too, hopefully. But anyway, that's what we're focusing on today is going to be our settings. And we're gonna talk about this a little bit more in depth now. And I have notes up here to help me because when I'm talking to you, I forget things when I start to move forward. We're going to draw on a little bit, so don't worry. Yeah, the theme, we talked about that, the two differences in theme, the general idea, and then what the author wants to convey. So when you're creating your story, think about that. Your book could be on self-image. Okay? Had a book at Betsy Wayne that got accepted into the publishing program last year called Feeny the Ballerina. And what this was about was a young girl who wanted to be a ballerina. She had really poor self-image. Okay? She had problems in her mind thinking she was overweight, so when she went to the ballerina class, all the girls made fun of her, and then she realized, though, the teacher took her to her side and said, look, you know, you can do this as well as anyone else, and then she realized that, and she became a great dancer. So that was the book, right? So deal with self-image, too. That is a problem facing students. So when you're writing your story, think about that. Your story might be just about her wanting to be a ballerina, but the idea the author wants to convey is, look, it doesn't matter. We all come in different forms, shapes, sizes, colors, everything, right? So that's, you see the difference in theme there, right? Okay, one is just someone wants to be a dancer, but the theme is we're all different. Okay, that's a good example of that. Let's see here. Okay, let's move on. I want to get through this so Bobby can actually have a chance to talk. We're going to talk a little bit about preparing to begin. If you feel overwhelmed right now, if everybody across the board, students in this classroom, if you've not even started writing a story, you're okay. But we're going to talk a little bit about ingredients. If you were to take what I'm about to share with you and literally take that and put this into, let's say you're cooking something on a stove, okay? And you have the stove here, and you're getting ready to cook something. I'm only going to put one burner on here, just because. And you have a pot sitting here, right? And you're going to put stuff in this pot, and you're going to cook it. You're going to let it boil, boil. And then after it boils, you're going to pull it out, and you're going to have something different than what you started with, using different things, right? So here's our little concoction, and it's going to be boiling. So what we need ingredients to put in that, and the ingredients that you really need, okay, is this. First, you need to write a story. You need something on paper, either typed out or written out. You need a story. So you need to write your story. That's the first ingredient. Without a story, you're not going to have a book, right? Okay. Once you have your story, you need to sit down, and you can make this list out. This is the ingredients. I'm giving them to you right here. Sit down and write the name of every character in your story. Okay? Just write the name of the character. Once you have the name written down, so you have your story, here's your story, then you have a name, a list of characters. Okay? Once you write your characters' names down, what you need to do is write just a couple sentences describing that character. Short, black hair, glasses. Tall, skinny, bald. Something simple. Just describe what the character looks like. Okay? The third thing you're going to want to do then, after you have your story and a description of your characters, is draw the character out on a piece of paper. Nothing too crazy. It's not going to be shown to anybody. Only you're going to see it. Draw the character out so that whenever you go to work on your book later, you know exactly what the character looks like. Okay? I mean, you need to use the tools that you've learned in the classroom in order to write and construct a proper story, okay? And we're going to talk today about the 5 elements of a story. We're going to talk today about how are you going to decide what kind of story you want to write about. The goal of this is, like I said, is for you to write your own story and then use illustrations in conjunction with those words to create a book.
Can you get it bigger?
So we're going to be talking about that a little
He
bit.
exited that call and went back, those boys said to.
Some of you guys are still, you've got to mute your mics, okay? You see the little microphone up there by your name where it says participants? You want to click on the little mic button, make sure there's a red slash through it, because if there's not, we can hear you out here in Breathitt County. We can hear them, can't we, guys? You guys hear them? Okay. So be sure and mute your microphone, okay? All right, thank you. Okay. Let's start off by just talking about it like this, okay? And this class is participating, and I'm kind of got my back's turned to you guys, but I'm sorry, but we'll move forward and roll with it. You guys forgive me, right? Okay. This class is participating in the program too. But let's start off by thinking about story in terms of what do you like? Now, I'm sure each of us can think of particular types of books, graphic novels, comic books, different storylines that we prefer and we like, okay? So the first step into this, you have to draw inspiration from something. And I don't care if it's Diary of a Wimpy Kid all the way to, I don't know, SpongeBob. It doesn't matter, all right? My goal is for you to create a story. Now, that doesn't mean that you can steal ideas. I don't want you to do a book on SpongeBob. I want you to create your own characters. I want you to create your own story. So what I mean by drawing inspiration from, find things that you like. Ask yourself why you like those particular books. And then you can pull some of those ideas and maybe story construction from your favorite types of books, okay? Maybe it's a certain type of character you like. Superheroes, that's a big one. Damsel in distress, princesses, right? We got villains, we got aliens, we got heroes. I mean, there's unlimited amount of options that you can pull from. You can even, because you have to start thinking about things today, right now. For instance, let's say you choose to do a picture book, okay? And for this, I'm going to show you an example of format here, okay? I've got two rectangles, okay, two boxes. One is portrait orientation. That means it's more tall than it is wide. The other is landscape orientation. That means it's more wide than it is tall. These are things you can start thinking about today. Everyone should know the basic parts of a story by now, right? We know that there's the introduction. We know that there's the setting. We know there's the plot. We know that there is the conflict. We know that there's resolution. Now, all those things have to happen in a story before a story is good. Now, I've worked with so many students that start out, and let's say they'll have an idea for a story, right? They'll have an idea for a story, and they start writing this story, and this story is really good, and it takes off, and it's working really well. And they'll get to a point, though, at the end of the workshop where the story actually starts to dive off just a little bit. And the reason for that is they'll have a character in mind, right? They'll have a character in mind, and they'll start writing about this character, okay? Then at the end of the workshop, they're short on time. They only have like 70% of their story done. So then they come out and they just end it. It's almost like a lot of elementary students will do this. One book last year, they had this really cool story going, and then at the end of it, an earthquake came and everybody just died. So that's a good way to end the story. Solve everything, we'll kill everybody, right? So you can see how that poses a problem, right? Because the resolution, there is resolution. There's definite resolution. But it doesn't really work well when you're reading it. You don't want to be invested in a 200-page novel, and then the author out of the blue just says, oh, and then aliens invaded, and everything went away. So thanks for reading my book. You know, you don't want to have that happen. That stinks. So plan this out ahead of time. Know what's going on. Create interesting characters. Create characters that you would like to read about. That's a great way to approach this. Create something that you would like to read.